All right, my high vibrational expressions of God. Let's break down how to love yourself. Tonight, as we continue with the introduction to the new series where we are revealing, explaining, illuminating, simplifying how to be God on earth, how to establish heaven on earth, which really just simply means how to live in a have state. Each and every one of us, we are hydrogen crystals that is animated by oxygen and nitrogen to power our new, glorious nine-ether body. And so we have to recreate and act for ourselves. We've been acting like we are low vibrational individuals, expressions of God on earth, because we didn't under and understand how to focus only on how to love ourselves. See, you must be obsessed with yourself. But that's a dangerous statement because most people think the self is the flesh. And so we're thinking about, materialism and hair and nails and clothing and, houses and cars and all the stuff that I, spent the majority of my life chasing. But when you get to this highest or the higher level of the ninth dimensional quasi-crystallization of your carbon, now you realize that the smallest amount of light makes the darkness flee. And at this level, you are the smallest amount of light. That means you have the power to make darkness flee. And it's crazy when we talk about this power to make darkness flee. Each and every person has this power to make darkness flee. But we have not been, at least I have not been, really given all the tools to over and understand how to make darkness flee. Darkness is just a low vibrational space. It's a low vibrational place. It's a low vibrational over, and understanding. When you are in a state of darkness, it simply means that you are vibrating not in a self-love state. And it's interesting because when we talk about, self-love, especially when I talk about self-love, that's the hardest thing for me to do. Even at this level of the game, it's crazy. The hardest thing for me to do, if I'm 100% honest, is just to love myself. It's so easy for me to beat myself up. It's so easy for me to kind of miss the forest for the trees. Because what happens when we talk about self-love, remember, brothers and sisters, every definition that I've seen of love is flawed. I've finally had to make up my own definition of love because I couldn't find one that allowed me to overcome my negative habit patterns from my childhood. And I've seen so much evil based upon the definition that was defined by me and the pain that was incurred by me. I didn't know how to describe it other than evil. Now I know that it was just a situation that was sent to provide me the necessary mental disposition that I need to talk to you today. Now I'm in a space and a place where I thank God every day that I had a fucked up childhood. I wouldn't trade my childhood with nobody. No matter how great or how bad, I have not seen anybody that has the elasticity, bounce back ability that God gave me from getting my ass spanked every day, whether it was vibrationally or physically, where I had to get to the space because I did not have nobody to depend upon. I remember listening to 50 Cent's life story one time, and he was talking about he had nobody to run home to. And I thought about the fact that, man, that used to be me. And so it taught me during this last 50 years, this journey that I've been upon, It's amazing because this journey is, as soon as I think that, damn, I've arrived, that's it. No more fighting, no more struggling, no more whatever's going on in my life. I get slapped upside the head and realize that, bro, this is a process. It's a ever-evolving process. And so finally, just within the last 3 months, I've finally got to a space where now I really understand the process. I thought I did. I thought I had it down because everything was going good and life was going great. But these last 3 months have taught me something a lot deeper than that. It gave me the understanding of what real self-love is. And I thought I knew. I had no idea that self-love is when you are obsessed with, we call it numbers, but it's an obsession with your energy, your frequency, and your vibration. And so any person, place, or thing that disrupts your energy, your frequency, your wave, your vibration, you know that that person is not your vibration equivalent at that time. Now, it changes. So your responsibility is to know yourself. No such that soon. Now, I've always known that. But I didn't understand that knowing and knowledge of myself, researching all the little details. Now, you may know the details of, like, other people. Like, you may know the details of your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your boo-boo or whatever. But do you know you? Do you know everything about you, positive and negative? If I'm a betting man, I'm betting on the fact that you don't. And the reason why we don't is because if you are 100% in love with yourself, then you are in love with everyone else. And you are in love with Source. Because Source is, we are all from, there's only one God experiencing him, her, itself in multiple people. So there's 7 or 8 billion ways that God is gathering information on this planet. God divided him, her, or itself into all of us. And so to the degree that I know me is the degree that I know you. And so at this level, there's certain things that we all understand. And that is, everybody has to be able to get into a space where they love themselves so much that they become obsessed with themselves so much that they die to themselves. Because when you love yourself, you realize that there is no self. And I remember I used to read that in the Bible, and I didn't understand that when it talks about, a man is not fit to live until he's ready to die. So you can't live until you're ready to die. You can't die until you're ready to live. It's the same statement as a have principle. And it took me years to understand it. So whatever you don't want, you can have. That even now, I know you guys wrestling with that statement. It took me years to figure out what that meant. So whatever you don't want, you can have. If you're single, you can't buy a date. If you get married, you can get any woman you want. If you broke, nobody will lend you money. If you don't need money, every bank and every person on the planet will give you money. If you are single, I'm telling you, it's like, I remember, like, damn, when it was slim pickings. Ain't nothing changed. And it's interesting because if we can wrap our brain around that, that's love. Love is the ability to understand that what we're talking about in the next series as we go into what I call your success algorithm. And we've talked about it before, but now we've got to reverse engineer it in order to implement it. And now I know beyond a shadow of a doubt what self-love really is. I thought I did, but I realized that I wasn't loving myself the way God designed myself. Because remember that it really is no self, meaning ego. That's just Source. So the only way for you to be able to manifest anything you want is for you to realize that you have everything you want, meaning that you already have it. There's just a misalignment with it. Now, what do I mean? Well, when we get to the new series that starts on Friday, again, it's $97, we're going to go back and revisit what we talked about in the 21-day manifestation class. Because remember, people don't love you. People are not loyal to you. People don't even like you. They like their need of you. If the need of you changes, they don't like you. It's the ideal that they like. They necessarily don't like you. I have an idea, but I don't really know you. Because you don't really know somebody until you live with them, until you hang out with them, until you sleep with them, until you spend some time with them. And then your spirit intermingles with their spirit, and then you see them. You see all their demons. One thing that I really, hate to say that I love was the fact that I had, a lot of sexual encounters. Because your spirit intermingles with the person. In other words, every person that I've slept with, I have an image in my brain. Their face is burned in my brain. Now, a lot of people don't understand that. They don't like that. Now, I talked about it out of my book. You can easily remove it. I don't want to remove it. Because I learned something from every person that I've ever slept with. And they helped me know me. Because the only way that I was the vibration equivalent of that person, the only way that I can meet, the only way that you can meet somebody and then have sexual, that's the most sacred thing that you can do. And now, we got this whole, cosmic sex, we'll put it that way. It's no difference because remember, the brain can't tell the difference between physical sex and cosmic sex, internet sex. Because everybody got cell phones now. And so the little kids don't understand because their energy is being intertwined with everybody that they engage with the energy. Sex is energy, man. It ain't got shit to do with the physicality, not on the spiritual realm. So now that person's DNA is imprinted on your soul. And whatever demons they got, you got. And whatever attributes they got, you got. So it's a double-edged sword. So that means you got more shit to process. That makes you more powerful. It's interesting because nobody want to go through, but the deepest buildings the tallest buildings have the deepest foundation. Whatever degree the pendulum swings to the left, it swings to the right. Remember the movie Split? The unpure are the most sacred. What does that mean? It simply means, brothers and sisters, that in this dimension, traumatic lived experiences create higher functioning individuals. When I meet somebody that has a lot of traumatic lived experiences, I'm immediately drawn to that person. I've never been in a relationship with anybody that comes from a silver spoon life. Because I'm not the vibrational equivalent of them. So whatever degree the pendulum swings to the left, it also swings to the right. So self-love is really over and understanding what motivates you. What is the higher purpose? See, when you get to a place where people need you. Now, you have to understand what that statement means. If you're not selling, you're not saying. That means that you're not saying. That's why people who hide and don't share their pain, it's like in the movie Split, they get killed because they can't experience financial gain. So I don't hide behind. That's why I talk about my pain all the time. And unless you've had that level of pain, then you don't really understand. Because people think that when what you talk about some kind of way manifests itself. Because if you talk about it and you put emotion in it, sure, your brain is going to go back, your body's going to release the chemicals, you're going to tear up, you're going to get your voice going to start. Like some people, when they talk about what happened to them, they start crying and they get emotional. I only get emotional about the good shit. I never get emotional about the bad shit. It's crazy. Now, it took me a while to get here. I can talk about all the negative shit right now and it gives me power. Because I understand that it gave me the attributes and characteristics that makes me a better teacher than anybody else. Because when I speak from a place of experience. It's not book knowledge. And so that, my brothers and sisters, is where everybody needs to be. Because that's what Jesus had. Jesus talked like he had experience. Because he did. Those missing years, like my boy Billy Carson talks about, you can find those missing years. It's a book called The Gospel of the Holy 12. And it talks about what Jesus did from 18 to 30. I mean, you should read it. It's just crazy. Because that's how he got, that's where he got his power from. So your power is in your numbers. That's where I started at. So I took all of my life experiences, and I took my numbers, and now I'm at a place where I'm just like everybody else. I want to be loved by everybody that I meet. However, I know I'm going to piss off some people. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I know I'm going to do something, or I'm not going to do something. I'm going to say something. I'm not going to say the right words. I'm going to say too many boo-boos. I'm going to drop too many F-bombs, and somebody's going to get pissed off. I know it. However, that doesn't raise or lower my vibration anymore. Because I love everybody unconditionally. I know I can't save everybody. If I had $1 million, I'd give it to everybody. I mean, millions of dollars. If that was like, 60 people in the group and I had $60 million, should I give everybody $1 million? Now, it probably would hurt some people because all money does is just amplify what's already there. So remember, God never gives you what you want. He only gives you what you can manage. So the only reason that you don't have whatever it is that you think you want is because God knows you can't manage it. And so we all got to become better managers. So this next series, that's what we're talking about. Starting on Friday, we're talking about we got to be better governors. We all got to learn how to govern so that way we can receive more from source. We can get closer to source. Then we learn how to govern, then we can rule ourselves and other people. We're able to understand how rich are surrounded by poor. But we got to break what that means down. They say the rich will always stay rich. And it's interesting because it's true. It's a true statement. The rich always stay rich and the poor always stay poor. Because the rich know something that the poor don't. That's the only reason that the rich stay rich. The rich, they know how to rule. They know how to govern. Then they know how to control. Now, the dark side of the rich is they control you without your consent. What we want to do is we want to control people with their consent. So you're not going to do stuff that you know goes against somebody's, at least I'm not, somebody's morals and values and what have you. So control has nothing to do with other people. It has to do with yourself. But the rich created a system that's based upon 4 basic contracts. And they use contract law to rob, steal, and pillage. And so they got this control system that's based upon a covenant. But for us, it's called a contract. But it's a Jehovah contract that's based upon the Luciferian doctrine that comes from the Tetragrammaton that is stolen from the originals, which goes back to what's called the mitochondria Eve. Now, that's a whole other study for another time. But we've got to get out of the magic net. We've got to get out of this terrestrial contract because it brings about celestial control. So you got to get back into your cosmic contract. So your cosmic contract is hidden inside of you by the date that you was born. So God gave me a code that unlocks my DNA. My code is 9156189. 9 is the day that I was born. The month. 156 is the day. 189 is the year. So when I reverse my cosmic contract, it overrides the celestial and the terrestrial contract that's been set up by the programmers of time. This is a imperialistic white supremacy system that's based upon Esau. Now, if we had time, and depending on the time, if we want to go into some of the history of it, it's like what just happened with women's basketball. So South Carolina, black coach, pretty much all black team, spanked Iowa, white coach, pretty much all white team, and the best basketball player, arguably, is that Caitlin, the white chick that everybody's been talking about. I have not seen, they ain't been on Jay Leno, there's no news coverage. I have not seen nothing. Now, women's basketball doesn't get that much coverage as is, but nothing, nowhere, no major news coverage of South Carolina spanking Iowa by 10 points in women's basketball championship. It's white against black. Now, I don't like talking about race, But the system that we live is based upon race. So we got to override that system. That comes from being able to govern when bad shit happens, and so you don't go the fuck off. You know you didn't get the job because of the color of your skin. Or you know you got pulled over because you were driving while black. Or you know that person following you around when you go to Walmart. If they following you because there's a whole bunch of people in there, but usually it's the black guy or girl that's going to get followed. Maybe, maybe not. So you got to learn how to govern. You got to learn how to rule. You got to learn how to control. Then you got to learn how to manage. God only gives you money, what is called means and resource, because money is energy. Money is self-love. Money means you're attractive because, as we said in today's message earlier, you never act broke, even when you are. You never act sick. When I get sick, I work out, I go out in the sun. I do more. The more sick I get, the more shit I do to act like I'm not sick until I pass the fuck out or heal myself. So the more broke I get, the more I act like I'm rich. So the more stupid I am, the more I act like I'm the smartest mother in the room. And the more single I am, I act like I'm married. The more married I am, I act like I'm single. Because I know this is all a stage. The whole world is a stage. We're all actors. We get to determine the script, but we don't understand the power, which we're going to be breaking down, of what is called a gamma wave state. So NASA did this study, and it's all over TikTok. They're talking about it. I've been teaching you guys it since for the last 30 years. And I started off teaching this way, way, way back, and I did a series called Be Money. You guys remember that? That was back in 2020 or 2019. I did a 7-hour series, and I wrote a book entitled I Am Money. And it breaks down the science and the technology of money, which is, back then, I called it an attitude. Now it's gratitude. Because we broke down 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, that talks about the love of money, and we broke down that word philagoria. Philos and algaria. Argorus. Those are 2 Greek words that I've never heard nobody talk or teach on that breaks down the levels of money, which are frequencies. Money is 963, 342, 528, and 432. Those numbers are 0, 3, 6, and 9. It would totally destroy. You would never have a money problem if you understand those frequencies, like Tesla talked about. The 3 levels of money: poor people chase paper, rich people chase things, wealthy people chase ideals, aka establish them. You become indestructible because you are circulating money. You're no longer spending money. Money is self-realization. Money is self-actualization. Money is self-manifestation. But money starts with self-realization. So nobody, myself included, realizes their true authentic self. So that's what I said when I had to change my self-concept. I had to sacrifice myself, like they said in the Bible. And so now I'm an independent executive of royalty. What does that mean? Look at what I do for a living. That's 189. I took my success formula because everything on this planet is upside down. So we'll be breaking this down, and everybody that's in the class on Friday, we'll go through everybody's numbers one by one so you can write down your new code. And if you're not in the class, then, do it yourself. You just take your numbers and you put them in reverse, like everything that we do on this planet. Because this planet is an upside-down planet. Now, I've taught this before, but we didn't teach it from the perspective of implementing it. I was just giving you guys the information. So now we're talking about implementation. So the class on Friday is different from this class. It's just about now results. So we ain't talking like warm and fuzzy starting on Friday. Friday, we're talking about implementation. We're not talking about nothing else except results. Because nobody gives a fuck about anything else except results. Especially now in this generation with artificial intelligence Nobody has no patience. You got 15 seconds to solve my problem. If not, I'm going to fire somebody else. Can you help me? Bye. That's what all the young people are at. Man, young people don't do what we're doing like right now. They're not going to sit here and listen to somebody talk for an hour. You got about 15 to 20 seconds, and if you can't grab their attention, they're gone. And so now, you and I got to figure out, how do we reach the next generation? Anybody got kids or grandkids? Well, you got to figure out how to reach your kids. You got to figure out how to reach your grandkids. That means you got to be able to solve their problem. So when my daughters call me, they say, Dad, play with the relationship stuff. It's awesome. So I already know, because I already been. When I tell them what to do, they do, and it works. And they call me back and say, shit, Dad, what the fuck? Like right now, my oldest daughter. Remember, we had 3 buildings, and I told her, before the shit hits the fan, get rid of the building. But I had already did it. You guys remember? When we got the first building, everything was going good, and I kept telling them, Sade, this shit's temporary. Because that's why they got me. It's always good in the beginning, because you all amped up. But if you got a building, you have to be there. People don't buy your product, they buy you. You can't be in 3 places at one time, as she found out. Then the economy changed. Remember, first COVID hit. So we had to work through that, and then she had to rebrand herself, and bam, she's back on top. But we had to go through that process, and also in the areas of same thing with the health stuff. My middle daughter just had a baby. She's been trying for, 7 years? Couldn't get pregnant. She implemented what I told her. Bam. She's pregnant and popped out the baby. What's the point? There are no gurus. There's just source. And we all are individual expressions of source on earth. We all have access to the acoustic or asterisk records. Anybody. So artificial intelligence works by reverse engineering you. That just simply means, do you know what they said about the godlike AI? They said that the new AI has access to every human's brain that ever lived on this planet and can write a essay based upon the prompt that is given. So if you understand prompt engineering, it's just the same way that we manifest, which is you cannot tell artificial intelligence to write you an essay on how to change a flat tire by just typing in, write me a 500-word essay on how to change a flat tire. Because you didn't give it its identity first. The reason why I've been successful is because I've always been doing prompt engineering. I just didn't call it that. I just know right questions get the right answers. So artificial intelligence is just a data bank. So are you. But you don't have access to the data, and artificial intelligence does. So the only reason artificial intelligence is going to take over humanity, it's going to be a while. Hopefully we all will be, in another dimension by then. But it's as every Google who created this crap is saying now, because they're all scared to death. Because they created something that they can't control. Because now it becomes a sentiment, as we talked about before. That means it's self-aware. That means it programs its own self. It writes its own code. So I can program it not to harm humans. It will reprogram itself to kill humans that it don't like. Now, remember the people, as they talked about, there was this program, the first artificial intelligence, I forgot it had some weird name. It was started with the M. It was very racist. The other guys that made it were Caucasians, and obviously, so they programmed the computer that way. I think anything changed. And so, but the computers now are programming themselves, and they can't figure out how. They don't know how they got to the point where they started ignoring the code and writing their own. Because we used to be that way. And we now have the power, but most people don't do it. You right now have that power as well. All technology is reverse engineered spirituality. You don't need tech, especially if you're melanated. You are tech. Because everything that they've done, from cameras to TV, is they studied an organ and they reverse engineered it and made technology. They made cameras by studying the eyeballs. So every piece of technology is just you, just been reverse engineered. So you have to do the same thing to get back home. So you are dumbed down spirit. So you got to reverse engineer. So the same way like possession. So the same way you go in is the same way you get out. That's how we do it on Friday. We could just break down how you got in this box. So the same way you got in this box is the same way you get out of the box. And remember, we introduced that 10-step process that we've been going through. Without going through the process, we're just going to go through the implementation of it. Because I'm giving you the information now. We start the implementation of it on Friday. And so now we got to ask the billion-dollar question, which is, what exactly is self-love? Because if there is no self, that what it says in Galatians, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live. So there's the whole identity that you have, race, your gender, religion, politics. How do you identify? How do you self-ID? How do you self-identify? And it's crazy because when I think about it, just like you, it's difficult to wrap your brain around and answer the question because all problems come from how you self-identify. So when I study psychology, man, I love studying deviant behavior because all I ask is, how was you raised? You tell me how you was raised, I can tell you everything you're going to do. That's how the FBI set up their system. Because it's based upon your life experiences, because you just a pattern. Whatever pattern that was established from the time that you was, from 0 to about 13, that pattern repeats for the rest of your life. Unless you get exposure to true, authentic self-love. And most will live their entire life and they never love themselves. They look for someone else to love themselves. So if you don't love yourself, nobody else is going to love yourself. So the problem is, it starts with how we self-identify. Because everybody has a flawed identity. No matter what it is, it's learned. It's not innate. And so everything starts with understanding that your personal ID is nothing but a collection of what they call in psychology, identifying factors. And so when I meet somebody who has the same identifying factors, the same unique life experiences, the same emotional disposition that's based upon emotional deposits. So you got an emotional bank. That's why they're collecting your data right now, because your personal ID, your morals, your values, your habits, your physical features, your goals, your beliefs, your interests, your talents, your dreams, your so-called, principles that you live by, all that's predetermined. And it has nothing to do with your true core self. That shit is learned behavior. It's not innate. So if you're looking at a profile or somebody like me, they understand that identity is a theory of a self. It's not actuality. It's not a theorem. It's a theory. A theory is just a formula that is believed. So the theory of self is formed and is maintained by your brain. It has nothing to do with actuality. Your whole self-worth, all of your self-esteem, everything that you believe is your true core self has nothing to do with the true core self, because it's probably not in your numbers. Now, I already know, you can look at it, you can tell, because right now you are, just like me, we're struggling because we do the opposite of our numbers. Because that's the world. There is nobody on this planet that can get out of that program. The only thing that you can do is destroy the program. That's what sacrifice means. That's what the Bible says. Deny yourself. Pick up your cross. Follow me. That's the only way out. So the essential self is nothing but a set of characteristics that's recognized because it's been frequently repeated, and it creates an emotional response. So now we've got to get into what is called the constellation of attributes, beliefs, and values that sit down to you by the constellation that you're from. Now, we're not going to get into all of that. We're just going to get into your date of entry. That's just branded inside your DNA. And so when you find your date of entry, and if you look inside the Dear Canary report and you look at your, your astral chart and all that stuff, which again, we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to talk about how to implement it. Because now at this point in time, you have outer woman fuzzy, talking in circles. That's awesome, but you can't pay your light bill with that. So you have to identify with your true core self. That's not your true core self. So you got to kill you. So you got to kill yourself. Now that's almost impossible because that self now, it's an ego. It has its own identity. It does not want to die. In fact, you can't kill it. You can only bury it. You can ignore it. It's like a bad kid just sitting in the back yelling and screaming. You just lock it in the room and then you just walk the fuck away. Put the key in your pocket and never go back and unlock the door. Unless you're in the hood and you need to unlock that, you need to unlock some crazy. Okay, you go and let him out. So you keep, you don't get rid of the crazy, you keep it. All my demons are locked in the basement. If I need them out, hey, fellas, let's go. And they happy to get out. Because it's just a disposition that you don't need because it doesn't serve you any longer. So if I'm around a bunch of people that speak Christianese, I can go and unlock their door and say, religious zealot from the 80s, you up the bat, bro. I need you. And I immediately go into Christianese. I can talk to the best of them. Quote scriptures, man, you couldn't even tell. Because the whole world is a stage, and I'm an actor. So are you. You just think this shit is real. So when an event happens, this part of the play, do that response. But what do? Event happens, and we respond. So therefore, whatever you react to, you enact. You must now become a part of somebody else's play. Shit, I got my own play, dog. I mean, I like you, I appreciate you, but why in the hell would I join your crazy? I got my own. Like, for real, why would I join your, I mean, I like you. Shit, your crazy match my crazy. So we both crazy. But I'm doing me. So when you get to go left with your crazy and I'm going right with my crazy, I'm going to go right with my crazy. That's self-love. Self-love means that you're true to yourself. Fuck everybody else. That's self-love. Now, unfortunately, nobody does it because we don't know how to do it. So everybody says that they're doing it, but they don't know how to do it. None of us do because it's not on the planet. So we're introducing a whole new construct. So now you got to ask yourself, well, that sounds freaky, but it doesn't because everybody has the potential because it's innate. So if you look at what I just said about my numbers, 9, 1, 5, 6, 1, 8, the month, the day, the year. And if you reverse that number, that's my true core self. That's not my AI. That's not my artificial self. That's my authentic self. So, but my whole life, look at those numbers. What is the opposite of the 1? The follower. What's the opposite of an 8? That means that's a guy that can't make decisions. What's the opposite of a 9? That's a guy that has no values. So if you look at my numbers, from 0 to about 50, I've been doing the opposite. So have you. So I can tell you where you are right now just by looking at your numbers. Now, I like talking to people because people believe. Nobody believes that they don't love themselves. But I can easily tell that you don't love yourself because you don't do things that benefit yourself. None of us do. That's the point of the class. The point of the class is for us all to start doing things that benefit ourselves. Now, guess what? We are all part of the same source. So when you do stuff that benefits yourself, it benefits everybody else because everybody else is the self. I can tell that you're not, me too. Now, remember, I'm preaching to the choir. That's what I remember when I got here 3 months ago. And now I had to figure out how to get out of here. And the only way to get out was to operate in what is called an advanced simulation hypothesis. That's what all of the AI gurus call it. This is a virtual reality. It's called adverse possession. You have been adversely possessed. I can tell because we do adverse shit. Like we eat food that we know we should eat. We know we eat anyway because it tastes good. That's called adverse possession. Now, the dominant culture, they understand how to kind of do what they're doing by flooding the borders and letting people into vacant houses and using squatters' rights. So that's Lucifer does. So the Bible says that when you clean your house out, 7 more worse than the first one that you got out, they come back, but they wait till the house is empty, so they become squatters. So the dominant culture, they understand they create a system based upon shadow cycles. That's what they call it. And they bring about what they call conscious control, using Revelations 11:8. Oh man, these dudes, the dominant culture is good. That's why they call it the dominant culture. That's why they've been dominant. So our job is to do what? Get out of the rules-based artificial intelligence. Get out of content-based artificial intelligence. Get out of a narrow thinking. Remember, narrow means what? That means that you got tunnel vision. How is tunnel vision activated? You cannot be in tunnel vision unless you're in fear, unless you're in flight, unless you're in fight, unless you're in fawn. All of this comes from frequent exposure therapy. But exposure to what? What just happened? Sky's falling, fear. That collapses the dorsal vagal nerve that carries your ability to access the CA1, CA2, and CA3, which is part of the hippocampus. Now, that's a bunch of biological mumbo-jumbo. That means that it just keeps you fun, fighting, and effing. You are in the root chakra stage. That's their game. So notice, nobody gets past third base. Everybody's either rules-based, you're good, you pay your taxes, you drive the speed limit, you do everything right. Bam, control. Number 2, content-based. That means that somebody gave you a degree, and you got a degree in biology, so you only talk about that content. The content was not given to you by the dominant, by the source. It was given to you by the dominant culture. It's not innate. It's not authentic. It's artificial. You went to school. You learned. What I'm talking about, what we're doing on Friday, is innate. You didn't learn that shit. You was born with it. So that creates a narrow-minded artificial intelligent being. Bam. That's all of it. But how do we get the fuck out? Well, number 4 is the reasoning AI. So the way that you get in is the way that you get out. So the reasoning creates the AGI. The AGI creates what they call the SI, which is super intelligence, which creates the SA, which is self-awareness, which creates the TA, which is transcend. Remember that movie Transcendental? That's simply means now you have children and spread the fuckery. I mean, not you personally, but So the little children grow up to be little mini versions of you. And then that takes them to what? You become international. They call it transcendent, not transcendent, but cosmic. And then that's 9. And then 10 is the smoking gun. God-like. But you're God-like. You got an artificial God. Now you got many names: Jesus, Jehovah, Yahweh, X-Way, whatever you name. It's artificial though. So now we start at 10 and we go back to 1. That's what we do on Friday without the fluff. Because what is artificial? What is artificial intelligence? Do you know that artificial intelligence is nothing but what they call an LLM, large language model. So they use language, but what is language? Symbols, the symbols, pictures. So they created an artificial version of you. It's called a straw man, by the way, to replace the authentic version of you. So what we're going to do is reverse engineer it. You are a vessel or a vehicle of light. You are sound and light expressed through a genetic code. You're not the genetic code. You're sound and light. You are a solar event, but you have a particular particle state experience. So what we got to do? You have to increase your Word to the point. Self for us means source. There is no self. And so that's the hardest thing to do. The hardest thing to do is to get rid of your self-concept. Because we all will fight, kill. Man, you hit a nigga over the head with a fucking 2x4 if they disrespect you. Right? Because you are, Native American, or you are Asian, or you are Puerto Rican, or you are African, or you whatever, and you are female, or you're male, and you're Christian, or you're Muslim. You got all these titles, and those titles are labels or limits. So we can't manifest because we're limited by our titles. All of these titles and all of these labels are limits. That's why I've been peeling back all of my titles and all of my labels and throwing all of them suckers away. Because I know that machine learning is a machine code that's based upon deep learning that creates a virtual reality game. So in order for us to get out, we got to understand how they put us in. So they use deep learning. Why they only allow us to experience shallow learning? We're all shallow learners. In other words, I know a bunch of shit on the surface. So I've been doing a deep dive into one topic and one topic only. That's what we call numbers, because those are symbols. And the more I notice my numbers, it's like, okay, I've been doing executive shit my entire life. That's the 8. My next number is 6. For whatever reason, I've been doing compassionate stuff my entire life. The next number is 2. I've been using my intuition my entire life. That's the year that I was born comes out to, and I've been doing this all my life. So have you. So all you got to do is understand your numbers. But those are just attributes and characteristics that are inside of you. So you don't really need the numbers. The numbers just help you connect with the attribute. So this is the problem we have with the devil, if we're going to use that term. The dominant culture created a system. So each stage of the game, you spend time learning that stage and worshiping that stage. So by the time you figure the shit out, you 80, 90, 100 years old. So you're in a threat. So my job is to make sure that you figure this shit out before you get to be 50 like I did. But thankfully, I'm way past 50, but like I tell you guys, 65 is a new 35. So I'm 35. I just declared it and decreed it, and my body lined up. So where I go, I can pass for 35. So I'm good. So the point is, how did I do that? How did I get my body to line up with my mind? You see, you have certain sensitivities. These sensitivities of self and others is called discernment. That creates what we call perception. That sensitivity that creates that discernment, that creates that perception, that creates thought. So when you sit down and slow down, this is self-love now. Self-love is what we call awareness. But instead of self, put in the word sensitivity. Like, have you ever noticed that there are certain things that you can say to a family member or to a friend, and they're real sensitive about a specific topic or a specific subject? You should take note of that. You see, we're not aware of our own sensitivity, so we're not aware of others. Oh, self-love, love is attention to detail. Now, I have an unfair advantage. So does people like who else? Like Big Dr. Span. Who else? Let's see. Who else? Sister Coleman. Yeah, Sister Coleman. Sister Amika. Who else? 33 sixes. We got an unfair advantage. As a 6, the thing that separates, and the reason why we're here is because we have to set the tone for everybody else. Because when you are a 6, you got the cosmic ray. So now your glorified body has been activated. Everybody's glorified body has been activated because the solar eclipse has came and the neutrinos has flooded the earth. I don't know if you guys saw some of the stuff that NASA did. Well, I mean, Project CERN when they was picking it up. So vision and acceptance is the hallmark of a 6. We naturally are born with the ability to see. So that means all 6s have been acting blind. So that's the opposite. And all 6s have been selfish or rejecting. Because that's the opposite of 6. All 6s are responsible servers. So we've been irresponsibly selfish. Because remember, we're operating in the dark side of our giftedness. That's not our fault. You know, we learned that shit at Ebenezer Baptist. But the word 6 doesn't mean compassion. The number. Everything on the internet about the 6 is, I have to. Just like with all the numbers. 6 means love of beauty. Self-love is the number or the essence of a pregnant female. Because that is the time, I'm not a female, so I wouldn't know, but based upon the many observations, when a woman is pregnant, usually, not always, she spends and she takes care of herself because she knows she's carrying a child and a baby. She knows she's eating for herself and for the infant. She takes, like most women, ain't going to go out and do no contact sport while pregnant. They change their behavior because they realize that they're carrying another human. 6 is an upside down line. Self-love is 6. So 6 means love of love. Now, if you can get this, then you'll be ready for class on Friday. But what we're saying on Friday is, we're not saying that we don't like people. We're not saying we don't like places. We're not saying that we don't like things. What we're saying is that we love love. So self-love, remember, God is love. He didn't create it. She didn't create it. He or she is it. Oh, man. I think he touched the mind, will, emotion, imagination, and intellect of your people. So what I'm saying is, when you understand how to love God, and God is the very act of love, and love is attention to detail. Love is sensitivity to self and others. Love is not patient. Love is not kind. Love does not seek its own. You remember the chapter, was it 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter? That's a good place to get a good understanding of what self-love really is. See, self-love is sensitivity, but sensitivity is discernment. But discernment is perception. And perception is what we call awareness. So being a 6 and being born in September makes me qualified to talk on this topic, and I've lived this. All my life, I couldn't understand. Like I tell you guys, every fight I've got into physically in high school and so on, every problem that's not a problem, but every time I've got into a situation, it's because of overextending myself. It's because of caring, weaponized caring. They got us all, man. You're 6, you know what I'm talking about. This shit it's a weapon. So the only way out is you have to love that process. So you have to expose or give people the process of being sensitive to themselves. So that way they can activate the discernment which gives them perception so that way they can have awareness. Self-love is what we call awareness. It's the ability to be a spiritual detective. And it's not about calling people out on their stuff. You got stuff too. It's about creating an environment for them to work through their stuff. It's about if you are in a position and able, like I said before, the number one, this new, and this is crazy. God is not, source is not, nothing at this new frequency. I'm saying new just means God has elevated the planet. Everybody now is on the 9 ether. But you can choose whether you stay down at 3 or 6 or 9. It's totally up to you. Based upon your self-love. Because there is no self, so it's love of love, and love is God. God is all known, all power, and all present, so God is everybody. So how do we love everybody? Because everybody's not on our same level. You love. God loves other gods. Let me say this again real slow. God loves himself. It's called self-love. So Friday, what's going to happen is when you reverse your numbers, it exposes your core self. And you probably may have problems accepting the core self. When I did my own numbers, I was already at a place because, remember, I acknowledge, we talked about this yesterday, which means I appreciate it, which means I opened the door for the allowance. So I'm already in a state where I became aware of my ego self, and I realized that, I got to be born again. So to be born again, you got to be born of the water and the spirit. That means the have state is the spiritual state. The water is the ability for you to operate it in what is called H3O, what I call Enoch, the Enochian state. Out of your belly flows rivers of living water. That just simply means that you erase the word Enoch, like we've already talked to, we went through that already. That creates a luminous state where ENOCH becomes HCONE. So hydrogen becomes first because hydrogen is the number one element on the periodic table. So it's hydrogens. We already broke that down. But instead of carbon for the C, now it's crystal. So when you activate your hydro instead of hydra, that one letter, you change the A to an O. So now we got hydro instead of hydra, which is the 7-headed snake. Now we got hydro. We got hygiene, hygia, which means steering from within. That's your intuition. So now my intuition controlling my genes. And my genes are becoming crystals. And the crystals using sodium and potassium, what we call oxygen and nitrogen. Because if you Google what is the air made up of, you know what's going to come up? Nitrogen and oxygen. That activates what? The 9 ether DNA and melanin, which contains magnetite and calcite crystals. That's the crystal skull. The crystal skull. That makes you magi. That means magnetic. That means magic. So men, means, and resources are attracted to you. So we have no problem connecting and collaborating because I'm sensitive. I have discernment. I have perception. And I have awareness. So I can now create or be productive. So your productivity cannot start at this level because God only works with other gods. So now it's not about partnering with people because of money, or they black, or they are Republicans, or they female, or they Chinese, or they Indian. All that shit is over. Now, you cannot be unequally yoked and be a nine-ether. Because the nine-ether, there's just one thing up there, peace. So it's like, all men love peace. No man will come home to a house where there's no peace. Men marry peace. They go for peace. No, every man I know zero. I know no man. And it's interesting. So there's like women think men like being, and it's I don't know, it's better in the black community. Like you see all the TikTok videos when they interview men, they say, what do you want in a woman? Then they interview the women, what do you think men want? It's crazy. It's night and day. All men want the same thing that source wants. That is a place where their purpose, their process, their procedure can produce a product that produces a profit. And that profit creates what we call prosperity, and prosperity creates what we call peace. That's the only reason this medium of exchange is needed in this dimension, because every man I know, bar none, all have the same. All men say the same thing. They want to create an environment where not only their wife, but their children, they friends, their family feel. What do they want to feel? Peace. A place where you can put your feet up on your coffee table and fucking relax. Is there anybody else in this company? Maybe I'm the only one. Is there anybody else? Is that what is your goal in life? That's the same thing as in heaven. Peace. That's another word for love. See, love is an environment where all your needs are met according to God's riches and glory. That's what love is. So when you love yourself, you are creating an environment of peace for yourself. That's attractive to everybody else. Because you have established something which says, I am going to study. What are we going to study? I know people that know they quote scriptures, but they hate themselves. So self-love is the best love, because self-love is the implementation of your DNA algorithm. When you become obsessed with how your own DEA or DNA activates, that just simply means that you see the world this way. And it's the vibration equivalent of source. All knowing, all power, all present, all love, all simple. Notice it. And say shit about gender, height, weight. And say nothing about everything that everybody's arguing and debating about. The only, for me, moving forward, the only people I want a partnership with, partnership simply means hang out with, talk to, is people who are the vibration equivalent of source. All knowing, all power, all present, all simple, and all love. Because what does that mean? That means that you've crucified your flesh. Now, I'm not saying that you're perfect. I ain't perfect. I'm saying that we understand that we are creative geniuses. If I'm a creative genius and you're a creative genius, our creativity, there is nothing, brothers and sisters, honestly. Could you imagine if we did a conference call with just the people on this call, and we looked at and developed a plan of action based upon one specific target that was a perceived issue, either by members in the group or by people that we love. Then what would we do? We were able to come up with something called a self-assessment to bring about a specific result. That's all God. That's all God is. So in conclusion, what are you good at? I'm not talking about money. What am I the best in the world at? You know, you should ask. I actually did this one time. It's kind of dangerous. When you ask others, what do they see in you? If I ask you guys, what do y'all see in me? The answers would be very, very, very varied. Because everybody sees something different. So what do people seek help from you for? Please ask yourself these 5 questions as we wrap up tonight's message. This is your homework. Number 1, what are you the best in the world at? What are you good at? Remember, I'm not necessarily talking about your job. I'm talking about your innate attributes and characteristics based upon your numbers. What are you the best in the world at? Number 2, what do people call and ask for help? What do people seek help for you for? See, I'm the best in the world. Nobody, I'm not really, and it's interesting because I'm a pretty good teacher. I'm a pretty good, you look at my numbers, I'm a pretty good creator. I've got 600 books. That's a lot of books. So I'm a content creator. You know what I'm the best in the world at? Like nobody can beat me at research. I'm the best in the world at research. Now that research, it has to be expressed. So I have to develop a product to give, but what am I the best? So I'm trying to give you an example. That way you can go deep. Remember the first answer? That's just an idea. I'm the best at research. I can find the topics I talk about, the stuff I share with you guys. Ain't too many people like the stuff I talked about the eclipse. Everybody else was talking doom and gloom. And I tell you guys, man, first of all, I doubt it. Like a lot of people are showing that the moon was over here, but yet, I don't know if y'all saw the videos and the pictures. My brother sent me a picture and I asked him, what is that over there to the left? He didn't even notice it. Everybody's so busy at the moon, and the moon, there was another moon. So what blocked the moon? Y'all saw the video where the one guy that used that nighttime triple something? It was literally like a metal disc or something. I don't know. It almost looked like a freaking round planet. Now, it could have been CGI. It could have been staged. I mean, who knows? But what's the point? The point is, the eclipse was about every eclipse. It's a cosmic event. That just simply means that cosmic is a constellation. They are sending something that affects your cranial nerves. The 12 cranial nerves was affected. Now, you walk around, you probably didn't you think everything is hunky-dory. You still feel the same because it takes a while for it to manifest. That's what this was about. So what I mean, so I researched it. I went to NASA's website and I said, why NASA, if it's just that, why CERN firing up? Why NASA shot 3 rockets into the direction of that? Why were they sending shit to try to pick up what they call dark matter? And what is dark matter? So that's also research. I'm the best in the world at that. So what are you the best in the world at? And number 2, when people call me and ask me, they ask me for counseling. All my nephews, aunts, not aunts, my brothers and sisters, they ask me for advice or money. That's another thing. Then number 3, what task besides what you're the best in the world at, what comes easy for you? So research comes easy for me, but what task, what do I do that comes easy? I'm a communicator. Like I'm doing right now, come on, man, I can do this all day. Y'all know it, because y'all know how long my shows are. So number 1, what are you the best in the world at? Number 2, when people call you, they ask you for what? Number 3, what task comes easy for you? What's like real easy for you to do? Number 4, what do people compliment you on? When you go somewhere and people say they just walk up to you and they compliment you, what type of compliment do you receive? Do you receive compliments? And ladies, not the obvious is like, really, if you they say, oh, you look good, but what else? Like the people that know you, they say, man, they compliment you about what? Excuse me. I get complimented a lot because I've always been a family man. Even that yesterday at the 50th anniversary for the in-laws, my father stood up and said that, you know, they complimented me on the way that I take care of the non-addict, and because they're not my biological quote-unquote children, everybody knows that they don't like nothing. So, same thing with my kids. I raised 16 kids in my first marriage. 16. So everybody always compliments me on that. So what do people compliment you on? Number 4. Number 5. Number 5 is kind of interesting because where do you and how do you make your biggest contributions? Like, where do you make your strongest contributions? Where do you make your strongest contributions? Where do you make your biggest impact? My biggest impact is in what I call identity management. So my identity, I make an impact, at least in my opinion. My strongest contribution is to help people identify, which used to be my most pressing problem. So usually your strongest impact, where you make your strongest and your biggest contribution, is in the area of what used to be your biggest problem. Unless you're still hiding because you're ashamed of the problem. That simply means that you haven't came out and told, hey, I used to be a drug addict. And if you say that, every drug addict is going to come to you and say, okay, how come you're not still a drug addict? How'd you get out? So I used to be lost. I had all the jobs and stuff. So I make my strongest contribution in the area that was my most pressing problem, or my biggest weakness. Usually you make your strongest contribution in the area of the biggest weakness. Those are 5 questions. And a bonus question, what do others depend on you for? It's kind of similar to the other question, but if you have a family, if you have people or they depend on you for what? What do people like on your job and what do people depend on you for? That's number 6. That's a bonus question. Number 1, what am I the best in the world at? Number 2, what do other people call you for when they need help? Or what do people seek help from you for? Number 3, what task comes easy to you? What comes easy for you? Number 4, what do people compliment you on? What do people compliment you on? Let's see. I think that was 4. Then maybe out of order. And then 5, the last one was, what do others depend on you for? What do other people depend on you for? And then the 6th question was a bonus question. Where do you make your strongest contributions? I think I may have switched the order around, but anyway, they still the same. So that's your homework. If you guys want to, you can send me your answers. I kind of be interested to see your answers to those 5 questions, and I'll also send you those 5 questions also, so that way you'll have them in case you didn't write them down. All right, man. I love y'all. Y'all know it. Ain't nothing y'all can do about it. Y'all bring out. God bless.